Welcome to the Orgasmic Birth Podcast, where we explore ways to make your birth and parenting experience positive, empowering, and uniquely yours. I'm Debra Pascali-Bonaro, your host, and today I want to dive into something close and dear to my heart. People hear me talk all the time about orgasmic birth, and they think, that's for someone else. That's only for people that are birthing at home and in birth centers. And yes, home birth and birth centers do create an environment that is more conducive to a pleasurable birth, but you can have a pleasurable birth in a hospital setting too. So I want to talk to you today, whether you're a first-time parent or you're planning another birth. I want you to have my 5 tips to help you navigate a hospital environment and ensure that you feel safe, private, in control, supported, and at peace so you can have a pleasurable orgasmic birth as well. So my first tip is prepare. If you've been listening to our podcast and you hear so many people share their story, they either, if they had a first birth that was very joyful, pleasurable, challenging, and amazing, they did a lot of preparation. And when they're coming back and joining us after baby 2, 3, or 4, and they really look back and they always say, I wish I knew what I learned now before, and they usually advocate for education, its power. So I say one of the first things to do is create a birth plan, or what I call birth preferences. And if you look in the notes, I'm giving you a free template. You can use our guide. You can go in, choose your preferences, print it out, and have it as your own tool. But it's really important that whatever you use, you clearly outline your preferences in a positive way. What you want versus what you don't want. Too often I see people write things, I don't want this, I don't want that. And already that's putting it in the negative. And we wonder why so many caregivers are like, oh no, not another long list of things people don't want. So really important, think about what you do want. Take responsibility for that. Consider and make sure you learn about the hormones of childbirth. We've talked about that in numerous episodes, including 2 great ones with Dr. Sarah Buckley, that you need to feel private, safe, and unobserved, as she said, right? To find comfort. What other things will you want on your comfort kit? You know, I know as a doula trainer, I do a lot of teaching around how to use birth balls, peanut balls, the cub, which stands for comfortable upright birth, rebozo, showers, tubs, touch, affirmations, movement, dancing, all the ways that you can bring comfort and pleasure too. And if you've been listening to many podcasts, and we're going to be getting a lot more into it, we have the science to really say that whether it's intimacy, kissing, self-pleasure, nipple stimulation, they're all great ways to reduce discomfort and create more relaxation and ease. But you have to be able to communicate whatever your preferences are to your birth team. And so really taking the time, right, to both write it down, but also call ahead, ask for extra time at your next visit to say you'd like to go over this with them, and make sure that they feel comfortable that what you're desiring is a part of what their practice is. This may include, you know, laboring out of bed a lot, right? Which we know creates more shorter, more comfortable, less painful labors. And talk about stand up and give birth. Don't let anybody put you down. My saying I say a lot, making sure that upright birth positions are there. But I also say you never know what birth is going to ask of you, and you only get half the equation. Your baby gets the other half. Sometimes they take the scenic route. They want to tour your pelvis. Sometimes for their safety or well-being or your own, you might need some of the assistance that medical care can give. Maybe even epidurals, cesarean birth, nitrous oxide, IV intravenous drips, synthetic oxytocin. There are many things. So I would encourage you to go through those as well. Talk with your caregivers when they're used, how they're used, and to make sure that you have a voice and a choice in it. It's really important. We know that people that look back and have birth trauma often had things done to them without having the time to understand it, without having the opportunity to either consent or refuse. And so this tool of creating preferences is to kind of do your ideal birth. What would you like? But if birth takes a different path, every birth has the ability to be positive. And a big part of that is you feel supported, you feel respected, you're a part of decision making, and you have good communication with your entire birth team. So put some time into creating your preferences, and they may modify over time, but definitely important to have, and keep them flexible. Next is really tour your place of birth. If this is a hospital, you really want to familiarize yourself with the environment. Most hospitals offer prenatal tours, and you may have to call or go to the website and sign up ahead of time. You really want to see the labor rooms. What are they like? How do you feel when you enter them? Meet the staff. Ask them questions about those policies. So laboring in different positions. Can you be in the shower? Do they have tubs? Do they allow you to labor and birth in the tub? How do they feel about elements of pleasure? Will you have the ability to have the privacy that you may desire for just love, connection, and intimacy with yourself or your partner? So really get a feel. And I always say to people, if the first place you see gives you hesitation, imagine this is like a really sexy date. And if you thought you were going to a place and this is where you were going to be the most vulnerable and the most intimate, and you walk in and you're like, not here, right? Most people would say, okay, we're finding another location. Well, your birth deserves that same thing. You've heard us talk about, right? That the hormones of birth, the energy that we bring to birth is very similar to the energy of intimacy. So if you get that not here feeling, you may want to explore other places. So ideally visit several different birth sites and visit early enough in your pregnancy that you can choose providers that are at the site that gives you a sense of safety, of giving you that privacy, and a place that you could be intimate with yourself and your partner. Create a comfort kit too. So if that birth room, and often any birth room, doesn't make you feel totally safe and sexy in it, you can actually change it. I've talked about creating birth ambiance. So things like aromatherapy, your favorite set list, cozy socks, and snacks, a soft robe, items that make you feel good. A lot of people wish they could bring their pets, but you can't do that in a hospital, but you could bring pictures of them. If you know my birth story, if you've listened along the way, I spent some time literally I locked myself in the bathroom for a bit because I wanted to be alone. I felt safest and private. And although my great-grandmother had passed on, I was really calling on her strength and her wisdom, having birthed 8 children at home. And my mother and grandmother at that time were 300 miles away, but I felt their love and their wisdom with me. So again, it could be pictures of people that might have passed on. It could be pictures of people that just are not there. Maybe they live too far away, or you don't want them there, but you want their love and energy there. So creating kind of a sacred space for yourself. You can really change a hospital room by changing the lights, changing the smells, bringing in some of your own effects. I always say bring your own pillow too. Their pillows usually are not that cozy, but when you put some of your things around, just think about how you can change that. And lastly, take a really good childbirth class. I think it's super important that you have a class that really gives you the knowledge that you need, that takes you through all those pain coping strategies. I like to call them comfort measures, that talks about all the different medical techniques and technology. What are the benefits? What are the risks? What are the alternatives? And if you do choose them or need them, how can you do them safely where you feel honored and respected and still can make this a really positive, special experience? So we offer our Pleasurable Birth Essentials with our own special, unique blend of pleasure, because I do believe pleasure is a really important ingredient to bring into prenatal preparation and can be really, literally labor changing in birth. So check out our Pleasurable Birth Essentials, but also any good childbirth class. So I know I gave you all those tips, but those were really under my number one, preparing for the big day. My other category in two is really set that mood for your birth room when you arrive. So we kind of talked about thinking about it, but when you get there, whether it's your doula, your partner, like have someone that's designated to keep the ambiance, to adjust the lighting, to put on the music. And so many partners love to DJ the birth, and I love that, where they can cue up different set lists for different feelings and just make it fun at times. And use that aromatherapy. I don't know anybody when I say, if you were planning a really romantic evening, would hospital smell be a part of it? And everybody kind of squints up and goes, no, right? So change that space. And as I mentioned, bring your favorite things around you. So when you get to your birth space, have someone designated, because if you're in labor, you're not going to be the one doing that. I remember a couple times I've done a lot of birth art with clients as we're preparing for birth. And one person had done so much, actually, she was an artist too, that we couldn't even fit all her art in the room. So instead, she laid it all out on a gallery floor. Her husband took a shot down at it, and we actually pre-measured the wall that it would fit on in the birthing space. And one of the first things I did as the doula was sticky tack, is put up this beautiful one. It was like we wallpapered with all her birth art that expressed all her different fears and feelings and desires and affirmations and wishes. So setting this space and having the people that are going to transform it for you very quickly. So when you get in it, and hopefully you're arriving at the hospital where you're in good, hard labor, right? So you're not going to be the one putting that aromatherapy out there, having that done for you, but having done the pre-work in pregnancy to plan for it really shifts. Because when the space feels like your space, you're going to move literally in different ways than versus coming in and having it feel like another hospital room where you might feel that you need to get in the bed and you become a patient where things are more done to you. This is a day to stay in your power. And so when you make this space your own, you're more likely to then move and do things in your way. My third tip is advocate for your needs. Use your brains, your voice and choice matters. So again, communicate your preferences prenatally to your caregiver, but really important that in labor, you have a way. How are you going to make sure that your voice and choice is always honored? Do you have a partner or a doula or both? Doulas are really important, I feel, at birth. And of course, I'm a doula trainer, so I have that bias. But often when you're in labor, you have trouble really advocating and speaking for yourself. And sometimes, if you ever been in that place where you don't even know what you don't know, right? What are your options? And partners get really often too, like they don't know. They're so concerned with providing the care that they can, that the doula is that person that's going to see what's happening and facilitate communication. A doula will never speak for you, But a doula will amplify your voice, will create the space to say, do we want to take a minute here to, really understand what your choices and options are, to facilitate that positive communication when caregivers are speaking, to thank them and honor them, and then check with you. Did you understand that? Do you need them to restate it? Do you have questions? Do you want to know more? Do you need a little time and space to take that all in because you're in labor, to really make a decision if that's the right next step for you? So of course, there are moments where things are more urgent and we don't have the time, but in labor, like 99% of decisions have the time and space for you to make sure your voice and choice are in it. And a doula is really great at facilitating that and then making sure, even if you only have one word, a yes or a no, that is heard, that's, did you hear? That person just said yes, or that person said no. So we're really good at that. And I said the brains at the top. Again, I've done other podcasts on this, but that stands for really understanding the benefits, risks, alternatives. What does your intuition say, or how do you feel about it? Not now, I need more time, or maybe it's a no, not at all. And the S is that whatever you decide, that you feel safe in how the process goes. And I add sexy because the hormones of birth are the hormones of intimacy. And if you have certain choices that are interventions, they can sometimes create hormonal gaps. And again, Dr. Buckley talked about that in our earlier podcasts. And so how can you safely fill those gaps? I call them your personal pleasure tools or oxytocin enhancers. And my 4 is really, I hope you're going to dive deep into this, is comfort and pleasure. What are your coping with labor sensations? So I hope through your preferences as we started, you've really put these down and you've talked with staff that this is part of what they encourage and support to. Staying mobile. How much of the time do they monitor you? And do they have wireless monitoring? And more facilities do, kind of like a cell phone. You can walk anywhere and talk. Well, that technology can be with fetal monitors too. If you're still going to a place where you have to stay close to the machine and it's plugged in, that's like years ago when that phone was in the kitchen, if any of you remember, on a cord, and you only could get as far away as the cord took you. So you really want to know what those options are. Do they provide birth balls, peanut balls, birthing stools, squat bars, upright birth things? Do they provide tubs? Is there a shower available in every room? Again, can you labor and birth in the tub? Because we know that water, many call it aquadural. And again, we had an episode with Barbara Harper, our water birth guru, on the many benefits of laboring and birthing in water. I've been at many water births and people said it was better than the epidural. It gave them so much relief, but without all the wiring and the risks that do come with epidurals. Are you working on breathing? Do you have tools that you're bringing for relaxation? I talk a lot in my workshops about Penny Simpkins' 3 R's: relaxation, rhythm, and ritual. So how are you doing that? How is breath a part of bringing you that relaxation? And then when you think about comfort measures, right, make yourself a list. There's not a one-size-fit-all approach, and often you don't know ahead of time which are the things that are going to work for you. And of course, no one should suffer in childbirth. There's a time and a place for epidurals, for nitrous oxide, for other things that are more pharmacological to provide you comfort. But you need to know what exists where you're going birth. What are their options? What do they do first line, which we often say are the non-pharmacological, all those movement, touch, massage, water, dancing, singing, and that. And then do they have nitrous oxide, laughing gas? What are the other steps? So Definitely the other thing I want to add to comfort measures, and be listening because we have a lot of podcasts coming up for you about people that used self-pleasure and had some really wonderful self-pleasure tools that made all the difference. And they really are saying that they felt a lot less pain. It created much more ease, relaxation, even opening, less tearing. There's a lot of stories coming. And I think that too often, based on shame and stigma, we haven't connected how much pleasure, especially self-pleasure, can play a role in birth. And we're starting to get the data and the stories that really talk about the benefits. So again, if that's something you want to learn more of, stay tuned. We're going to be offering you a lot more in the coming days, but it's also something you want to really consider. Can you talk with your care team? Because having your full pleasure treasure chest of coping mechanisms and understanding what they are and how they can be used is really important. And my fifth tip is there's two of you. What about the baby? And so every birth story is unique. Your baby, it's their experience, it's your experience. And sometimes your birth story is going to be different than you may have desired or envisioned. But what a gift to maybe make that change for your baby's safety, to welcome them. But once that baby's there, you have a real opportunity to make this first hour or two very special. So really important to put that babe skin to skin. We know skin to skin care actually regulates, the birthing body regulates the baby's temperature up 2 degrees or down 1 degree. That regulation is far better than any warmer. I always joke those warmers are good for French fries, but not for babies. We know that not only will they stay warmer skin to skin, they're getting all the wonderful microbiome, they're seeding their gut intestine they need to get that birthing person, and later, if there's a partner, partners skin to skin with that baby. But it also regulates their heart rate and their breathing. When a baby's skin to skin, they're also in this beautiful oxytocin, the love hormone bubble after birth. And that's helping them to stay calm and connected. And it's what helps you fall in love, right? To really get to know each other and just be together. When a baby is separated, they have a response called protest despair. A baby that's separated over on that warmer will cry. That's protest. And babies only stop crying of 2 reasons. They either get back to their mother and then they're where they want to be, or they go into despair when they're too tired to carry on protesting. Babies in despair have very high levels of stress hormones, adrenaline and cortisol, which will lower their core body temperature and more likely throw their breathing and their heart rate off. So too often we separate a baby and then say they have to stay separated because they're not warm enough for their breathing or their heart is off, when that's all an artifact of separation, protest, despair. So really doing a preference, I always say 1 page about your first hour or 2 with your baby. And even babies with many special needs do better if they're skin to skin. We can still have pediatrics there. They can be getting oxygen. Babies that need extra care can get it, but the best incubator is the birthing body. So really talk about that. There's a lot of research now on delayed cord clamping, that cord is still pulsing. It's bringing that really rich oxygenated blood to the baby. And if that cord is cut before the blood has settled, the baby can lose up to 1/3 of their blood volume. Yes, 1/3. Think about that. If you lost 1/3 of your blood today, right? How would you feel? And those poor babes can't let us know, but they must not feel good for quite some time to be able to bring back that volume of blood. And some research says it can actually weaken their immune system. I read one study that even went out 4 to 6 months. So this first first hour is really important. So back to our first one, really knowing your preferences and not only what you desire in labor, but writing a separate one because stuff could be changing at the time you're giving birth. Having something short and simple where you can talk about your desires to stay connected, to be with your babe in that first hour or two. And this also will support breastfeeding. Now, I do want to say, once you're settled in a day or two or three, whenever you're in your own bed and you have the time, it's really important to reflect on birth. As doulas, it's part of our postpartum visit. We call it processing the birth experience or debriefing, but it's so important for you to acknowledge your strengths. Birth often asks more of us than we could have imagined, and it's discovering that there is this well within us that you're going to find, that you'll bring not only into motherhood, but you'll bring it into every aspect of your life. So taking time with the people that were at your birth to really share your feelings, and for things that went different, to talk about how that felt that it went different. Did it go in a way that you still felt safe and honored and respected and part of decision making? And if not, what would you have liked? It's really important. Healing begins as you start really honoring every aspect of your birth story and celebrate, right? Your wins. No one fails in birth. I always feel when people say, I didn't have this or I didn't have that, but you gave birth. And so again, every birth is unique. Every birth is different. Every birth deserves to be celebrated. Sometimes you had to dig deeper into that well of strength than you ever would have imagined prior. But this is something to take pride in. If you've watched our film, our documentary, Orgasmic Birth, there's a scene I always love where Trisha is just holding that newborn and says, I'm not afraid to tell the whole world how proud I am of myself. And when we show the film in public and I get to look around, there's often quite a few tears in the audience because I think we don't say enough how proud we are of ourselves for birthing our babes, for being a part of this process wherever it is. And I know that you can do it with pleasure too. So I hope these tips, especially in a hospital, taking the time to prepare ahead, have a good class that really prepares you, visit your hospital, write your preferences, communicate them ahead with your care team. Because if you're hoping for one thing and that's not what they give you, that's going to be part of the disconnect that you'll feel in birth. So knowing ahead, are you in the right place? Do you feel safe, private, and unobserved? And do you feel safe to talk with them about your pleasure? Can you bring that in? Can you transform the space into one that's your space so that you stay in your power? You've got this. I look forward to hearing from you. I hope these tips have supported you with some ideas to write down how you can have a pleasurable, and I say yes, orgasmic hospital birth.